just do it. We'll try it okay. And welcome, once again, to Talking Time with Caffeine.
Hello.
You both know my guests. They've been on several times. There's Jillian, my document expert.
I suppose, yeah.
And Snick, my something expert.
I'm not an expert on much, so.
I was just thinking that this is a topic where I bet a lot of guys would want to hear my actual credentials, because I'm a girl, and so what do I know about superheroes?
Eoi.
Well, I've been joking since my daughter was very little that she was already getting prepared to be called a fake geek girl when she got older. Because one of her first words was Pie Man, which was how she said Spider-Man. My earliest superhero memory is actually about Spider-Man, specifically in about 1984 or 1985 when we moved into the house I grew up in. I was reading an Electric Company magazine with the Spider-Man comic in it, and Peter Parker taught me the difference between stalactites and stalagmites.
Ooh. Well, Spider-Man wasn't part of Marvel yet. Well, technically he was, but not in this content.
Yeah, he was definitely a Marvel character,
but do you know? Are we on phase 6 or 7 now in the?
I think we're on 6. I looked it up. I
think it's 6.
I lost track after 4 or 5. I think I lost track.
I mean, pretty much everybody did, because the MCU is not exactly on top of the world as it used to be.
No, I'm behind, but that's mostly because it's hard to get babysitting. But I give it another couple of years, we won't feel the need for babysitters, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, I think it's still a little bit above the DCU universe right now because
yes,
they're not consistent.
They are very uneven movies.
The universe reboots every 5 years, I think, or maybe less.
They're still trying to figure out how to copy the success of the MCU without actually bothering to pay attention to what made the MCU successful.
And legit, they only just got, a popular movie with Superman, and that's only one movie in.
Yeah, this is something that I wanted to be sure that we talked about, in fact, was how much of a gamble this whole thing was for Marvel.
Well, yeah, because at the time, they were still... Because, the whole reason why the movie rights were split up between all the different studios was because Marvel was, pretty much about to go bankrupt.
Right there, for our first slide.
They pretty much went about bankrupt towards the end of the 90s, and to prevent themselves from outright dying, one of the things they did was they sold off the movie rights to their various characters. Obviously, Sony got Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, New Line Cinema got Blade, 20th Century got X-Men, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, everybody kind of knows that story. But yeah, by 2000, the mid-2000s, I don't know the specific time, they had restructured enough to where they wanted to, gamble with, doing the movies themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, by this time, we had on Sony, we had the Tobey Spider-Man. I don't think Andrew Garfield ones had been out yet. We had the X-Men series, and we had the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And the one Hulk movie.
There had been the Unlee Hulk, and the Wesley Snipes Blade had come out, and
if you want, yeah, you can see most of this stuff on our review of all the Marvel movies sections.
Yeah, I believe the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider had long since come out. But the thing is if you were, without knowing the background, going to start a Marvel Cinematic Universe, you'd want to start with Spider-Man, right?
Which they couldn't.
Or Wolverine, or one of the characters that everybody knows. Because everybody will go see a Spider-Man movie. But they couldn't do that because they had sold off the movie rights. And so they're staring in the face of, okay, we're going to try this thing. What do we start with? You know, we can't start with the Fantastic Four. We can't start with the X-Men. We can't start with Spider-Man. What do we do? And I think that was actually part of what made the MCU work, was the assumption that you were seeing these movies because they had shown you that they were good, not you're a sucker and we'll see anything we put out that we've slapped Batman onto. Obviously, Batman is DC, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the contrast between the two, is DC always starts with Spider-Man or with Superman or Batman. And Marvel couldn't start with their biggest characters. They'd already sold off the movie rights.
I mean, if they had to start with anybody, I mean, Iron Man was probably one of their best options, and their only other options were like Captain America. Like, the only other option that probably would have worked was Captain America, but yeah.
You know, people at least had heard of Captain America, and a lot of them
makes sense too, since technically they're the.
There was. Earliest. I would say Iron Man was kind of known by then. Like, I mean, Iron Man did get his own animated series in the 90s. Marvel Ultimate Alliance had him in the forefront.
Sure.
They did too,
but he's not 90s. Back then. He was not nearly as big of a name as he is now.
Yeah, and unless you were younger, you probably hadn't seen I'd never seen the animated series.
Well, the first season of it is not good. The second season turned it around, but it was too late by then. It was short-lived. Yeah. And
I think it came out at the time when I didn't have cable, so I wasn't watching much of anything, because I lived in a place where either you had cable or you didn't watch TV.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I only knew Iron Man at the time from his 2-episode crossover with Spider-Man, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon.
See, that's the very same Iron Man from his animated series. It's the same voice actor and everything. Like, he was crossing over.
Yeah.
So,
but unless you were a comic book fan or of the right age to have seen the specific cartoons, you probably didn't really know who Iron Man was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But in reverse bankruptcy, I think by this point, Marvel, or technically Disney, has recaptured most of the rights of their stuff they took away now.
Well, part of it is all of the rights that got sold to 20th Century Fox they have back now. Sony is complicated. Sony is... There's a reason that, like, Madam Web and Morbius and things don't really mention Spider-Man, and that's because it's a whole big legal tangle with the Sony people and the Disney people. But, like, they couldn't even say the word mutant for much of the early years of the MCU, because that was a word that was owned in that context by 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, they used their other one, the Inhumans.
Yeah. So
which is a thing. I looked it up that they were a thing, always been a thing, but they were the downgrade mutants, I guess.
Yeah, like there have been a lot of terms that get thrown around for how various people get their powers. And the one thing I have to say is with Iron Man, they sidestep the whole thing. How does he get his powers? He builds them. They don't have to worry about saying the word mutant because I'm not going to say Tony has never been a mutant because Marvel continuity is vast and makes no sense. But
there's millions of Earths out there.
Yeah. Tony is not a mutant. Tony is, in many ways, just the DC or the MC equivalent of Batman.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Billionaire genius with Playboy. I've got that in the wrong order.
Something I gotta say, this is my opinion, but I'm sticking with it. This is not Earth 616.
Yeah. Regarding that thing, the MCU did get its very own Earth designation, which you can actually hear being listed off in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
And then, abruptly, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, thinking it was being cute by doing a tongue-in-cheek reference to the comics, decided to name itself 616, because the main prime universe from the comics is 616.
Yeah, I choose to think of that as an ahistorical moment in the series that I don't have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's like Nick Fury says, it's a stupid decision, and I have chosen to ignore it.
They also said it in Far From Home, but considering that was a liar,
Mysterio was a liar. You could just ignore it.
Yeah,
but they've kind of doubled down on the 616 thing because I'm pretty sure Fantastic Four First Steps refers to the main MCU as 616 still.
I don't care. Care. As far as I'm concerned,
it's funny how they got around it. There's more than one multiverse now.
Yeah. That's why multiverses are not the best solution to what's been going on. But, Marvel, bankrupt, decides to start a cinematic universe anyway. And now, I don't know if either of you remember the discussion before the movie came out. Online.
Unfortunately, I was only 12 years old when the first Iron Man came out.
Yeah.
Most I can tell you from, I remember the ads, but the only other thing I can really remember from its release, because I didn't go see it, I didn't really know much about it. The only thing I knew, I recognized Iron Man because I had played Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and I saw him in, Spider-Man the Animated Series, and also, I watched the Iron Man animated series around the time the movie came out for the first time, because JetX was doing a marathon of it to promote the movie's release.
Yeah, in these days, this is before my kids were born.
Yeah.
And my partner and I actually had a calendar in our room with every opening weekend of the summer marked off with what we were interested in seeing. And this was one of the movies that was on that calendar. And did not disappoint.
Question. At this time, had the Batman trilogy already finished?
No. Iron Man came out the same year as The Dark Knight.
Yes.
And another thing to keep in mind, this is early enough in the timeline to where the Disney buyout of Marvel had not happened yet.
Yeah.
The early MCU movies, Marvel had partnered with Paramount to distribute them.
Yeah, almost all of Phase 1, they're still Paramount movies.
Yeah, like, it was, like, even after the Disney buyout happened, like, Paramount continued distributing them just because that was, like, the deal they had signed. I think Iron Man 3 was the last one that Paramount distributed. After that, Disney, like, assumed full control.
I think it was either Captain America or First Avengers that the Disney bought.
No, Disney's
Captain
buyout of Marvel was in 2009, 1 year after Iron Man and Hulk. So
Captain America is the last of the movies with the Paramount logo still on it.
I know the Paramount logo was also on Avengers and I think Iron Man 3, but I might be wrong on that, but yeah.
Yes, because I watched Captain America yesterday and was looking at the trivia, and one of the things it specifically mentions is it's the last one with the Paramount logo on it.
Well, I remember seeing Avengers and Iron Man 3 at one point having the logo in front of it. I don't know if they plastered it or what, but
I mean, you could also just be misremembering. I don't,
that could be true, but yeah.
But I have to admit, I didn't finish my rewatch because time got away from me. It happened. Well, also, I had no power last weekend. By this time last Saturday, my power had gone out, and it didn't come back until about 5 o'clock on Sunday evening. And then I didn't get internet until midway through Monday. So my movie watching for last weekend didn't happen. But I watched almost all of them leading up to this.
I've watched, like, about a year ago, I did a whole binge of, like, the entire theatrical Marvel filmography. I mean, with, like, a few extras. So that included not just the MCU stuff, but all the non-MCU stuff. So I went through all of them.
Well,
and we did do an episode on that, like, a while ago, but but it was very long, and really, we kind of had to rush through some things just because there were a lot of movies where I didn't have much to say, and it was already super long anyway.
Yeah. So who wants to give a quick plot summary?
I want to start with the buzz online before the movie even came out and before we even knew what the plot was. Because there were a lot of people who were anticipating this as being a huge failure.
Well, that was, I would imagine part of that was just because Marvel hadn't really proven themselves as a movie studio yet, and then there was also the stigma with Robert Downey Jr. at the time.
Well, yeah, the thing is there were a lot of people who weren't. It wasn't, well, he's, he's a druggie and he might not would. They thought he was miscast.
Yeah.
And you can be as worried as you want about how he's going to get through production, and that is not an unreasonable worry. They couldn't get insurance for him because of his history of drug use.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, it wasn't
John Favreau held out. But you cannot say that he's miscast.
He looks just like other versions of Tony Stark that have appeared in other things.
It's not just that he looks like the freaking original Tony Stark back in the 70s. It's that he is Tony Stark.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, what wasn't him that people later had issues with? It was another actor down on the list.
Yes. But, like, his drug use and his womanizing and he's not a stupid man and all of these other things. He just is Tony Stark. And so even at the time, back in 2007, when I was first hearing of this, I was like, are you people on what he's been on? Because...
continue. Finish up first. Finish up.
You cannot say he wasn't a good actor. Because he already had an Oscar nomination by this point. His first Oscar nomination was for Chaplin, which is not a good movie. But his performance in it is so good that there's a scene that I'm not sure if it's archive footage of Charlie Chaplin or not. The movie itself is terrible. His performance in it is amazing. Like, if you go back to the 80s, Robert Downey Jr. has been doing good work as long as he's been an actor. So it wasn't even, can he handle? Yes, obviously he can handle the part, and he is Tony Stark, and he looks like Tony Stark. But somehow the internet, of course, the internet was also going on about how Heath Ledger was miscast. So, you know, heady days in the discourse.
Some things never change because
It's true.
that kind of discourse continues to this day in a lot of cases. But
oh yes,
it's funny how you mentioned how Robert Downey Jr. was cast. Just hearing that description reminded me of I Love Lucy from the 50s and when Bill Frawley was cast as Fred Mertz because they didn't want to cast him on the show because he was an infamous alcoholic, he's a womanizer, and Desi Arnaz wanted to cast him because that's exactly what Fred Mertz was.
Yeah, well, apparently he was also a horrible person who emotionally abused Vivian Vance. So
yeah,
right. But
the two of them hated each other, but that's another story.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, Tony Stark is the son of Howard Stark, who founded Stark Industries. Tony is exceedingly intelligent. Graduated from MIT at some stupid early age. You know, one of those people who could hold like 80 degrees if he cared that much, but he doesn't focus on any one thing for very long. His father died young, leaving him the company. He has mostly left the company in the hands of Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges, who is also kind of a father figure mentor character to him. Daddy issues will be a running theme in the MCU to come. If you could power a superhero with daddy issues, the MCU would propel them across the cosmos. Tony is in Afghanistan. Well, I don't remember if it's specifically Afghanistan, but it's Afghanistan.
Somewhere in the Middle East.
Demonstrating the most recent Stark Industries technology. And his convoy is attacked. He takes shrapnel to the chest. He is kidnapped by the mysterious Ten Rings. This will be a complicated choice in movies to come. But he is told by these people that he needs to build them his new super powerful weapon. Instead, what he builds, with the assistance of his interpreter, who is also some kind of engineer, as I recall, is the first incredibly crude Iron Man suit.
Mark 1.
Mark 1. He manages to destroy the base. His interpreter is killed and tells Tony basically, earn this. And Tony goes back to California, declares that Stark Industries is not going to build weapons anymore, locks himself in seclusion, and builds himself a better Iron Man suit.
And a better arc reactor, too.
A better arc reactor because the shrapnel is... This made more sense in the 70s. It's kind of stupid today, but the shrapnel is still lodged in his heart, and if it doesn't get pulled away, then it's going to kill him for reasons. Don't worry about it. So he's got an arc reactor embedded in his chest. And it turns out, look, guys, there's just going to have to be spoilers if we're going to seriously discuss this. So bear with us here.
Yeah.
It turns out that Stane hired the people to kidnap him. I believe he actually wanted them to kill him, but never mind. And he decides he's going to build his very own Iron Man suit. He will be Ironmonger, except Tony is smarter than his entire team of engineers, and Tony manages to defeat Ironmonger, and at the very end declares himself in a press conference to just be Iron Man.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines when Obadiah says, "Tony built this in a cave of a box of scraps."
I'm sorry, my daughter was talking to me.
I was talking about how where he yelled at that one guy who was later in the Spider-Man movie, like box of scraps in the cave.
Fun fact: the guy he's yelling at was actually Ralphie from Christmas Story. The you'll shoot your eye out kid. Yeah, he goes on to work for Stark Industries. One of the things I did last night to amuse myself was I finally started putting together my long-threatened database of everyone from the MCU who has an Oscar or nomination or BAFTA or nomination, and I've only gotten through phase 1, and there's 20-something people on it. These are highly acclaimed actors. On this one page, there are 3 Oscar winners. Admittedly, I think 2 of them didn't actually win until after they were in this movie, but even those 2 had already been nominated. And Terrence Howard has a nomination. He's never going to win. We'll get to Terrence Howard. He's a lot.
Yeah, 2 of these actors here didn't return for future movies. One of them because he died in the movie. The villain.
Well, he briefly, he finally gets acknowledged again in Far From Home, because that's, Mysterio's whole backstory. He was, one of his employees.
Yeah. But they've replaced James Rhodes. It wasn't a last-minute decision. It was... Terrence Howard is a lot. He actually, in this movie, had a higher salary than Robert Downey Jr. He, at the time, did not have a record of being difficult to work with. As I recall, he was fairly fresh off his Oscar nomination. They thought that he was going to be a good actor to work with going forward. Things would change. This is also the introduction of Phil Coulson, played by Clark Gregg, who will become one of the through lines of the MCU going forward. Technically, very, very technically, this movie also features yet another Oscar nominee in Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, but since he's only in the after credits scene, I chose not to put him on the slide. We'll get to him.
I forget if Marvel had already been doing this before, or this was the first of them doing post-credit scenes.
So, post-credit scenes had existed sometimes. There's one at the end of the Muppet movie. There's one at the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They are actually basically the same thing. It's basically Animal or Ferris telling you the movie is over and you go home now. There are other movies. The Pirates movies had what are called stingers. After credit scenes. They weren't a common thing.
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets had one.
I was going to say some of the Harry Potters, because there's the Gilderoy Lockhart.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. And there are movies going even further back than that. Now, obviously, there's a time limit to how far back you can go, because credits used to be at the beginning. And so the after credit scene was the entire movie. But even in those days, you get, the end morphs into a question mark or whatever. But the MCU was really what made it a continual thing. And it really does start with Iron Man.
Yeah.
This movie sets up a few basic points that we will encounter in a lot of the other movies and not just the ones with Tony Stark. Because the MCU is very wasteful of its villains.
Well, early MCU villains were not at all memorable.
Well, it's not just that, it's that basically none of them survived.
Well, it took until Loki for them to start having, considerable personality to them. And
I think, first off, I think that the reason that Stain is so understated is to play him opposite the fact that Tony is a lot. And second, I will have a lot of things to say about The Incredible Hulk, which is a movie I like much more than anybody else.
Well, I like the Incredible Hulk, but yeah.
I will also say that the best scenes with Blonsky are all from She-Hulk anyway.
Now, in the Incredible Hulk, they do a thing that they do later in Spider-Man 2, is they skipped the origin story or speed right past it.
Yeah, the opening scene, the beginning of Incredible Hulk, which I had forgotten until I rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, is a masterclass in getting your story through as quickly as possible with no dialogue. Because it's just shot, 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 shot. Here's what's going on. Here is how the Incredible Hulk happens. Here is fighting. Here is Bruce fleeing into, he ends up in Brazil. And you can...
Oh, sorry. Oh,
you can get the entire origin story from it. But it is not the movie itself an origin story.
Okay, so this is an interesting anomaly production-wise, because we'll get to the pre-credit scene when we get to it, but basically, this movie technically began life as a sequel to the 2003 Hulk, because the Hulk, when Marvel sold off all their movie rights, it was Universal that got a hold of Hulk. And they still had the movie rights at the time this was made, and I keep hearing conflicting reports if they still have the rights or not. I remember last year, just before Captain America Brave New World's release, I found out Universal finally lost the rights. And then, just a few weeks ago, somebody sends me a post online saying, oh no, they still have them.
Yeah, I don't pretend to understand the legality of a lot of this stuff.
So, yeah. This was not part of the deal Marvel Studios made with Paramount. They were working with Universal on this one. And pretty much the one thing... This is not a sequel to the 2003 one, even though the 2003 one ended with Bruce going to South America, and he starts out in South America at the start of this movie, but that's the one connection.
Yeah. You know who says this isn't a sequel? Kevin Feige says this isn't a sequel.
Well, it is not a sequel.
No, I'm just saying, if Kevin Feige says, that's pretty official.
Well, when you watch the movie, you can tell it's not a sequel.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've only seen the Unleashed Hulk once because I hated it so much.
It is. It is a bad movie. It is a bad movie.
I watched it a couple of years after it came out. I was like, this movie is terrible. And the friend I saw it with was like, I thought you knew. Like, no, I knew, but I didn't know.
Well, yeah. So, because of that Marvel needing to work with Universal and all the legal crap related to that, this ended up being the one solo Hulk movie that that Marvel Studios made, because any other solo Hulk movies have to get they had to get Universal's approval. They could use, just like the deal they have with Sony and Spider-Man now, they can use Hulk in any Marvel movie that doesn't focus on him, but if they make a movie that focuses, where he's the central focus, then yeah, Universal had to be basically the front man for it.
Yeah. I saw this one in the theater as well, marked on the calendar. I think my partner might have been in Iraq when it came out. I remember seeing it without him for some reason. And leaning over during a big character reveal to my best friend and whispering, "We thought you was a toad," because Tim Blake Nelson appears and I can't see him and not think of "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" So it's Edward Norton as the Hulk for the one and only time.
And
he is the best Hulk.
And then it's a shame because he was a repeat of Terrence Howard.
Not entirely. I mean, it was partially about the money. It's also partially because Edward Norton is notoriously a pain in the butt to work with. If you know one thing about Edward Norton as an actor, it is that he's a very talented actor. If you know two things, it's that he's a very talented actor who's a pain in the butt to work with.
So I know negotiations to have him come back in the Avengers did happen, but then they fell through.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that apparently Marvel Studios wanted Mark Ruffalo in the first place, but it was Universal that mandated Edward Norton.
Interesting.
At least that's what I read.
I side with Universal if that's true, but anyway.
Yeah.
So he is in Brazil. Illegally, obviously. And he is working at a small soft drink factory, where he is getting paid far less than he deserves for far less work than he is capable of doing. He's technically working on the line, but in reality, he fixes all of the equipment and so forth, and keeps the factory from falling apart. And he's working on various techniques to, keep himself from growing and becoming green. But one day as he's fixing the equipment, he gets a cut. And a drop of his blood ends up in a bottle of the soft drink, which is then shipped to the United States, where the Stan Lee cameo drinks it.
And presumably dies.
Yeah. The Stan Lee cameos, some of them are better than others. This, in my opinion, is one of the best. But, so Stan Lee drinks it and ends up in the hospital with severe gamma radiation poisoning. And that, my friends, is what we call a giveaway. And so General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross and his team, which includes on loan from the British military Emil Blonsky, Tim Roth, go down to Brazil to try to capture him. He hulks out, he gets away, he makes his way back to the United States, where he goes to retrieve the research he has so that he can take it to someone he's been communicating with online who might have a cure. General Ross catches him, or almost catches him. He hulks out again. He goes on the lam with his girlfriend, Betty, who is General Ross's daughter. They end up in Manhattan. Blonsky is given the treatment, becomes what is called the Abomination. There's a large battle in Harlem. He gets away again to the wilds of Canada this time. I do like the casting of Betty from the On Lee better, because that was Jennifer Connelly, and you can't beat Jennifer Connelly. Liv Tyler's not doing bad work here. She's just, with all the love in my heart, not the best actress in the world.
William Hurt as Ross makes several appearances in the MCU later on, like in Civil War and stuff, and later.
Yeah, like for a while, people were debating if the 2008 Hulk was even canon because they went a long time without really referencing it, and it didn't help that even when Hulk appeared in Avengers, it was a new actor, so it was easy to, it would be easy for people to say it's just a different character. But then finally in Civil War, they had William Hurt come back as General Ross, and he made a couple more appearances until his untimely passing.
Yeah,
and then Captain America: Brave New World was finally sort of a stealth sequel to the 2008 Hulk because you got Tim Blake Nelson back. Liv Tyler has a brief cameo.
That's one of the ones that I haven't caught up on because we missed it because of babysitting. But it is on my list. I mean, Brave New World is like basically a stealth sequel to 2008 Hulk. So
they finally filmed what happened to the Samuel Stern thing was brain got leaked.
Yeah, like they finally follow up on that in Brave New World.
Yeah.
So
they follow up on the Abomination and She-Hulk, and it's a delight, and it is so much fun. It is so much fun. I love that show, and he is still the best character in it. But part of the reason I think Edward Norton is a better Bruce Banner is that he comes across as extremely turned inward. Everything about him is focused inward. And with Bruce Banner, that's because if he isn't doing that all of the time, suddenly he's the Hulk.
You don't think Mark does that?
I do not. Mark Ruffalo has a skeezy frat boy vibe to me, and I'm sorry, that's just true no matter what I see him in, and I've seen him in a bunch of things. I don't much like him as a person because he leans toward anti-vaxxer and 9/11 truther, but I really don't like him as an actor. And that is what it is. That's liking and not liking people as actors. That's as much about you as it is about them. That's fine. But Edward Norton is also physically smaller. You know? It feels like he's trying not to take up space. It's worth noting that the voice of the Hulk in this is Lou Ferrigno, who also gets an appearance as the guy who lets Bruce buy when he gives him a pizza, which I thought was a very nice touch.
Well, Lou Ferrigno also has a cameo in the 2003 movie. He's a security guard talking to Stan Lee.
Which is, admittedly, that's a great moment. I'm just saying, it's a good moment for Lou Ferrigno.
For a shitty movie, but yeah.
It is a nice bit of continuity by having him there.
There's another I don't know if it's a cameo or not, but people later on made the connection of that one guy in college to Peter Parker's teacher later on.
Yeah.
Well, a similar thing would happen in Iron Man 2, but we'll get there.
There are a couple of things where that may not be what it was intended to be, but it became later on.
Yeah.
But another thing I thought about it was interesting about this one was that they destroyed a different part of New York for a change. When New York gets destroyed, it's usually Midtown. Having it be Harlem was a nice twist.
I was about to say Harlem, but I can't pronounce it right. Harlem.
I did think it was interesting that they established that it's not necessarily just anger that would set off the Hulk. He doesn't know enough to know if it's just increased heart rate, which can have all kinds of causes.
Like I was thinking it was stress or something.
I mean, in the movie, it's implied that it is excitement of whatever kind. While he's on the run with Betty. Who, side note, I'm so glad they call her Betty and not Betsy. Oh my god. I know Stan Lee named characters what he did because he could remember the names that way. That's why there's so much alliteration in the Marvel Universe. Because Stan Lee gave a litter of names that he could remember. But Betsy Ross is officially one of the worst names in the Marvel Universe. I will not be taking questions at this time.
She was named Betsy originally?
She was named Betsy originally.
I never knew that.
Yeah, Stan Lee has a lot to answer for. Even Betty Ross is not a lot better, because it's still very clearly what it is. But yeah. You know, I do think that one of the constant conflicts in the MCU is between mindsets. General Ross and Obadiah Stane represent a very specific kind of military mindset. And while the movies do have a certain amount of go America rah rah, that's not the vision of America they promote. Because the people with that mindset are always wrong.
Oh yeah, we mentioned this, but I think in the movie they little nod to the future Captain America movie where the whole point of this was they're trying to recreate that serum that Steve Rogers took later on or earlier on.
What Blonsky gets injected with is the a version of the super soldier serum, which will come up again repeatedly, actually. And according to the MCU, that's what Bruce Banner was working on when he became the Hulk.
Yeah.
That is comic accurate because famously in the comics, there are many attempts to recreate the super soldier serum that failed because its original creator was quickly assassinated.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying that also in the original Hulk comic, there was a bomb involved.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to say comic accurate because comic continuity is not stable. You can go with what it was in the original comic. You can go with what it was in the most recent reboot. You can, you have to decide what you're calling comic accurate.
Yeah, I forget.
MCU continuity is fairly static, but only fairly. Comics continuity is an enormous snarl, and anytime you think you have a handle on it, it's because you've missed an issue.
Yeah. Anyway, I forget what radiation they used in Captain America to combine the serum, but here they used gamma radiation,
Yeah.
which obviously had these consequences.
Yes. One of my favorite stories about the vaccine injury reporting system, which is a thing that we have in this country because was somebody claimed that their flu shot had made them and they used nothing but technical scientific terms, but it made them grow rapidly and gave them increased musculature and turned their skin green and all of these things. And a human finally looked at that and went, wait a minute. And wrote back and was like, you cannot be telling me that your flu shot made you turn into the Incredible Hulk. But it actually went through the automated system because the automated system doesn't know what the Incredible Hulk is. And that's why you can't trust self-reports of vaccine-caused injuries, because you can say any damn thing and it makes it into the system.
The next one is the first
Well, we missed one key thing from the end of Hulk.
What?
That would be the pre-credit scene.
Oh, that's what this next one I'm tying it into a little bit, because this right here is kind of like an extension of the pre-credit scene or post-credit scene.
So basically, in the 2008 Hulk, like, the general reception was like leaning on the positive side, but people kind of thought it was kind of unremarkable, except for the pre-credit scene, where Robert Downey Jr. has a surprise appearance as Iron Man. And he goes to talk...
Tony Stark.
Well, he's as Tony Stark. He goes to talk to General Ross about the Hulk, and it's basically... That one shot was like, yes, Marvel Studios is serious about doing an actual crossover or universe of some kind.
Yes.
Yeah.
When it comes to this part,
because at that time, an appearance, because of how standalone, all the individual Marvel series were, people did not think an appearance like that was possible.
Yeah, now... The idea of a cinematic universe is not itself new. There are a bunch of them going back a lot further than people realize. Disney had one in the 50s and 60s. The Medfield College cinematic universe in this TED Talk I will. But comic book movie cinematic universes did not happen. The closest you got was that the Bruce Timm animated Batman and the Bruce Timm animated Superman were canonically in the same universe.
Yes, and then Batman Beyond, Static Shock, Justice League.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so there was a Disney animated universe, but it had never happened in live action before.
Well, it's funny because until it finally happened with Hulk, there were a couple of other attempts, to my knowledge, the most notable one being in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, where apparently they were going to have Hugh Jackman appear as Wolverine in a cameo.
Yeah, but
they got as far as actually getting Hugh Jackman to the set, and reportedly the reason they didn't do it is because they couldn't get his costume.
Well, yeah, because the X-Men were owned by a different studio at the time.
Yeah.
So, that would have had to have gone through the lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And oh boy, that would have been complicated.
Yeah.
But anyways, this here, they take that little mid-credit sequel, post-credit sequel, or mid-credit sequel sequence and looks at it a little bit.
Yeah. And I hadn't actually watched this before. I'd never gotten around to it.
Same.
And I think I watched it this week, And I think it goes back to my point that the military-industrial mindset is the wrong one in the MCU. Because the people who want frickin' Blonsky as part of the Avengers Initiative are thinking he's big and tough and powerful and he's military, so he's our guy. And the guys who are actually on the ground, like, trying to make things workable, are like, yeah, but no. And the way they get around it is by sending in Tony Stark, who is a complicated figure, but the main way he goes wrong is when he leans into that kind of thinking himself. But even when he does it in a Tony Stark way. And send him to go be himself at somebody.
Also, here, at the time you didn't notice, but looking back with it hindsight now that we know the future history of it, one of these guys here is Hydra.
Yeah. And I don't know if they knew that yet. I doubt it. I doubt it had been that well planned out.
But if it hasn't been or whatever, it makes you think back what they're of all this there. Especially later on in a future, we'll talk about later on a future one shot. But first of all, the first sequel.
Yeah.
So this is where, a small thing. This is where one of the later retcons comes in. One of the opening action scene has like Iron Man save this kid who's wearing like a toy Iron Man mask and everything. They later retcon that kid was Peter Parker.
Yeah.
So
now the lead-in stuff we have to talk about here, the elephant in the room, is if you look right down under that triangle glowing on Tony's chest there, that's not Terrence Howard.
Uh-huh.
Terrence Howard wanted to continue getting paid more than Robert Downey Jr. Now, personally, I bet I could use his math to convince him that he was. Unofficially, I'm willing to believe part of the problem was that he was starting to show cracks. Terrence Howard is probably not a well man. There's the whole teriology thing, which is his own version of math, wherein 1 times 1 equals 2. Which I don't understand any of his explanations of, because they are wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. I don't think I've seen it, but I know if you saw that documentary that what's his name did, Dave.
No.
I mean, he exaggerates stuff a little bit, but he did a whole thing about Terrence Howard.
Yeah, no, but I've read other things, and I think there was a Bad Science Sunday about him once. He's not a well man. He also has a record of domestic violence. And, like, let's be clear, Robert Downey Jr. has served prison time. It has all been for narcotics-related offenses. And you can have your feelings about how we handle narcotics-related offenses in this country all you want. What I'm specifically saying is that's a non-violent offense. Terrence Howard allegedly has used his share of partner violence. So that's probably one of the reasons that he was no longer Rhodey. The main one was he thought that he was as valuable to the franchise as Robert Downey Jr., which is its own delusion. So he has now been replaced with fellow Oscar nominee Don Cheadle.
Honestly, Don Cheadle was way better as Rhodey than Terrence Howard ever was. I don't remember anything about Terrence Howard's performance in the first one.
He's fine. The funniest moment in the first one, as far as Terrence Howard, is where he looks at the Iron Man suit and says, "Next time." It's one of his last lines in the movie. Like, nope. Don Cheadle, frankly, is just a better actor. He also seems to be a better person by far, but that's not the world's highest bar. He is a considerably better actor, and I think he has a better feel for Rhodey as a person. And this movie takes some very subtle acting from Gwyneth Paltrow and Don Cheadle. Gwyneth Paltrow, I'm not a huge fan of as a person. Don't get me started on Goop. But I think she's a better actress than people necessarily give her credit for. This is, obviously, the sequel to the first Iron Man. Tony is openly Iron Man. He is also an alcoholic and womanizer. And he is exploring maybe sort of kind of having a relationship with Pepper, but also there are so many other pretty women out there, and he's never really done the whole monogamy thing. Meanwhile, Congress, in the person of a senator who I didn't list on here, but who is a BAFTA winner, I discovered, played by Gary Shandling, is trying to claim the Iron Man suit for national security purposes. They are unable to get it. They hire Justin Hammer, played by the extremely talented Sam Rockwell, to build them a new version. It later became canon that the actor, or the soldier we see breaking his back in footage of the tests of the Justin Hammer Iron Man suits, is Benjamin Bratt's character from Doctor Strange. Anyway. Oh, somebody let my cat out. So Justin Hammer is trying to build Iron Man suits. He frees Ivan Vanko from Vanko comes to Monte Carlo, to attack Tony in the middle of a race. There's a whole thing. He's got these whips.
Oh, and he also managed to make it his own version of the reactor.
Yeah. Justin Hammer manages to sneak him out to his own place, and it turns out that Vanko's father had worked with Howard Stark to develop arc reactor technology. And so Vanko and Hammer team up to take down Tony Stark because whatever. But Tony is doing a damn fine job of taking himself down by getting really, really smashed and playing around in the Iron Man suit.
Oh yeah. Also here is another third line that the reactor is killing them because the element's radiation or something. Palladium.
It's heavy metal poisoning, I believe. But it is the element itself that is killing him. And he's handling it very, very badly by being emotionally unavailable and drunk a lot and not telling anybody what's going on. Which is, yeah, that tracks. Meanwhile, he's got a new secretary because he's promoted Pepper. She's now in charge of Stark Industries. His new secretary is a woman called Natalie Rushman, Scarlett Johansson, who later turns out to be keeping an eye on him for S.H.I.E.L.D., also represented by Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, and Agent Coulson again. And I am here to tell you the best acting in this movie is how Pepper and Rhodey try to handle being around Tony while he's drunk.
We didn't mention here in this thing, but wasn't the director of this movie, The Bodyguard, happy?
Yeah, Jon Favreau. Talented. His directing work to me is kind of uneven, but he's very good in the role of Happy. He kept playing the character even after he stopped directing for the franchise. He's doing good stuff. But Happy is also a little bit, I don't know what to do here. I was chatting with a friend while I was watching this movie and expressed the opinion that had Robert Downey Jr. gotten his hands on an Iron Man suit during his own worst days, we would no longer have a Robert Downey Jr. and possibly large amounts of urban Los Angeles. Somebody with that much power, that out of control, is scary. And Justin Hammer clearly wants to be Tony, and Vanko's got his daddy issues, and neither of them are as smart as Tony, and they can't get to the level that Tony is. But what I think is the most interesting plot of this is watching Tony's friends try to figure out how to make him stop drinking.
And this is, after that, is X-Bay. This is where we find out that Tony's father had a hand in S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes. We learn bits and pieces about Howard Stark in these two movies, the first two Iron Man movies. We're going to learn a whole lot more about him soon. We also learn that he was a distant and neglectful father, who continually told Tony that he was never going to make anything, or that he was not good enough in some way, and was incapable of telling Tony that he was aware of how smart and potentially capable he was. Meanwhile, it feels to me like Justin Hammer is the younger brother who's convinced that Daddy liked Tony best. It's a very weird dynamic going on in that movie. But this movie is one of the reasons I get really frustrated when people say that the MCU doesn't do characterization well. Because there's a ton of characterization going on here. And some of it's really subtle. The way Gwyneth Paltrow plays Pepper looking at Tony is really well done. But, also there's the written in motivations for these various characters. And, this movie passes the Bechdel test, I'd like to point out.
What is that again?
Pepper and Natalie have conversations about work. And the MCU is a horrible sausage fest, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Captain Marvel being the best of the lot that way. But there's some good interaction between Pepper and Natalie in this movie. Also, it should have won Best Original, or at least been nominated for Best Original Song, I Will Die on This Hill. There is a song at the Stark Expo in this movie called Build a Better Future for Tomorrow Today, which is the most mid-century modern, chipper, like, we're gonna make a better future retro-futuristic song imaginable. It is perfect, spot on for the kind of thing you get at, say, the 1963 New York World's Fair. And the way they accomplished having it be that spot on an imitation of that kind of song is by hiring the then living Sherman brother. As in, the guys who wrote It's a Small World, and There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow, and a lot of songs that were at the 1963 New York World's Fair. And they hauled him in and had him write this song to be for the Stark Expo. And it's perfect. And only 4 songs got nominated for Best Original Song that year, so there was room for another one, and it should have been that song. But the Academy hates the MCU. And that's another one of those really subtle details that they didn't have to do. And mostly, I don't think the MCU does music terribly well. But that song and a song we're going to get to soon are just perfect for where they are.
Oh yeah, so he apparently his father hit a new element in the World's Fair or the Expo.
Yeah, his father hid vibranium. Which, you know,
that's what that was.
In
that's
phase 2, I think.
So it's confirmed it was vibranium, the element powering his thing?
I think it's confirmed that it's vibranium. I could be wrong. I don't remember. I have a hard time remembering most fictional elements.
Yeah.
We were watching Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and I laughed really hard because the exciting new element there was space titanium.
Yeah, 3 elements. I said 3 elements that I know of in the MCU, in the Marvel universe, is vibranium, adamantium, and
adamantium.
Yeah, antium. I can't pronounce it. And the one that the hammer and the axe is made of, that Thor uses.
Oh yeah.
Or something like that.
I don't remember what that was called either. Yeah, and there is that great cameo of the Captain Marvel shield. Just for a second there.
Is it Captain Marvel shield?
Not Captain Marvel, Captain America, Captain somebody. I know what I mean. That's okay. But I'm one of those people who the first thought they have when they say Captain Marvel is actually the DC Captain Marvel, who everyone else calls Shazam.
Well, they permanently changed that Captain Marvel's name to Shazam because of the Marvel character.
Look, the legality on that character is long-standing for decades, but all of the comics I've read are from the 40s and 50s, so in those, he's Captain Marvel. People can call him Shazam all they want. That's the old wizard.
Well, he was Captain Marvel all the way up to the 2000s, because his one appearance on Justice League Unlimited called him Captain Marvel, and Mortal Kombat vs. DC called him Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like the early 2010s when they changed it to Shazam.
Yeah, I think I had literally started parenting by the point at which he legally became Shazam. As far as I'm concerned, he's Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Also, there's 2 crossovers here. Somewhere there's like a they're watching. So I forget who it was. They're watching a report of the Hulk attack in Harlem,
Yeah.
and then they mention something happening in Arizona.
Yeah, Coulson's got to leave. Well, it's New Mexico. Coulson's
Oh.
got to leave because there's something happening in New Mexico. So we know that one of the later movies at least partially overlaps with this one. I think there is confirmation that The Incredible Hulk overlaps with this one. The timeline on the MCU, other people besides me have placed movies exactly on, and it's hard to say I'm too lazy to do that, given the fact that I tried to wrangle with the BAFTA database yesterday. Side note, the BAFTA database is terrible, and if you put in names, it results with everything with that name without sorting it out in any way. So a search for example, Terrence Howard will return James Newton Howard and Howard's End and all of that stuff without distinguishing it in any way. BAFTA up your game.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong here. The timeline setting. I think around this time right now, the events of No Way Home is happening.
No.
On the state.
No Way Home is far down the future.
I know, but as of 2025, it's happening.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was right. It was around this time, it was right after Halloween.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it says. I think it was this year or last year, around this time, it happened. It's happening, or it's happening. But yeah.
Yeah. Relative chronology interests me in the MCU. Specific chronology, I have a harder time keeping straight.
Yeah, everything. I think everything was pretty much on par. The year happened until that 5-year time gap.
Yeah. The thing with this movie, in particular, is it really emphasized that we're going to keep going with this. Like, not only do we have a sequel, but it's clear that our sequel is tying into the other movies. And it was around this time, I think, that they were starting to talk about the upcoming Avengers movie. And it was clear that we were moving forward towards a thing.
Yeah, they already this. It was either this movie or the last movie. They already mentioned the Avengers Initiative.
Avengers Initiative is at the end of the first Iron Man movie. And in the one shot, they specifically talked about the Avengers Initiative. But they were in pre-production for the Avengers by this point. So I think we can move on to the next movie now. Oh yeah, the one shot.
Basically, Phil here kicking butt.
Yeah, that's all this is. It's cute. The one shots are about 4. Again, I missed the third one. I just ran out of time. But they're about 4 minutes long, the ones that I did watch. And they're cute and they're fine. And they don't really add much to anything. This is Coulson sees gas station holdup. Coulson kicks much butt. We discover that Coulson actually is that fierce. The end. Thor. It's not my favorite Kenneth Branagh movie. It is a very atypical Kenneth Branagh movie, but it does explain why this is probably the most Shakespearean movie in the MCU.
Yeah, he does love his Shakespearean-style movies.
Well, he does literal Shakespeare. My favorite Kenneth Branagh movie is Much Ado About Nothing, which is a Shakespeare play. Some of his Oscar nominations have been for Henry V, featuring a very young Christian Bale as Boy, and the world's most undeserved adapted screenplay nomination of all time for his version of Hamlet, which is completely unabridged.
Yeah, it's 4 hours long.
That's because it is word for word the Shakespeare play. He didn't adapt the screenplay. Like, yeah, okay, he put stage directions in it, because Shakespeare didn't do stage directions much. That doesn't count as adapting a screenplay. It's the least deserved adapted screenplay nomination of all time. Just give it to Shakespeare. It's fine, he didn't win. This is just one of my weird little twists. But, also, we have in this movie the single most Oscar-winning cast member of the entire MCU as Odin Allfather, Sir Anthony Hopkins. More Oscars and BAFTAs than, well, in this movie, the entire rest of the cast put together. Natalie Portman has pretty much all the others. But he is the king of Asgard. He has 2 sons, Thor and Loki, who grew up to be Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, who were both nominated that year for the BAFTA for Promising Newcomer and lost to some guy I've never heard of. And the day that Thor is to be officially named heir to Asgard, frost giants sneak in and try to take the MacGuffin from the Hall of Treasures of Asgard. And Thor decides that the way he's going to get back at them is to go to the realm of the frost giants and basically kill them all. Odin goes after him, saves his life, let's be clear, and ends up banishing him to Midgard, which is what they call Earth, and whispers into Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, that whoever is worthy shall be able to wield the power of Thor.
Yeah, here is the thing. I've seen other people talk about the difference between this Thor and his hammer and the mythology Thor and his hammer.
Oh yeah, no. The mythological Mjolnir is basically a really cool hammer. The Marvel Mjolnir literally gives you the power of Thor. This Thor doesn't have the alter ego, but the alter ego is specifically referenced because Donald Blake, which is who comics Thor originally was, and in this case, by originally, I mean in the original Thor comic, Donald Blake was just some guy, and he picked up the hammer of Thor and was deemed worthy and became Thor. This Thor just is. And he loses his power because he is not mature enough. And that's what his father means by worthy. Really. Emotionally worthy. And so Thor ends up in Puente Antigua, New Mexico, which means ancient bridge, where he encounters Jane Foster, Natalie Portman, who is researching Einstein-Rosen bridges, I believe they're called. Some kind of, basically wormholes.
Yeah,
With,
yeah.
hmm?
They talk that when I heard when they mentioned that the time that reminded me of the old TV show Sliders.
Yeah. I mean, wormholes are a staple of science fiction going back quite some time now. They are, and this is really more Vandy's area of expertise than mine, and I'm not sure it's even his area of expertise, but at least he's a physicist. They are a mathematical and physical hypothetical possibility, I'm pretty sure. In Marvel, they just are, and that's fine. But Jane is studying them along with colleague Eric Selvig, played by the great Stellan Skarsgård, father of an entire freaking acting dynasty of Skarsgårds, and Jane's work-study assistant, Darcy Lewis, played by Kat Dennings, who is one of my two favorite MCU characters. And Darcy, early in the film, Eric says to her, "I thought you were a scientist," and she says, "Yeah, political science." She was the only person who applied for the job, so that's how she ends up working for Jane.
Yeah, Jane. Now, by this point, Natalie had already been in the Star Wars movies.
Natalie had already been in the Star Wars. This is about the time she won her Oscar for Black Swan. Yeah. She is herself incredibly smart, as I recall. I don't remember if she's got a doctorate or not, but she's one of those people who, if she doesn't, she could.
At this point,
had an extremely intelligent woman.
At this point, had Kate been in the TV series that made her famous?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Mostly where I think of Kat Dennings from is playing Darcy. So, some of these cast members were big names. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins got his first BAFTA back in the 70s. He'd been around a while. And I don't have her on this list, but Renee Russo, I believe, had her BAFTA by this point. Like, there are some people in this movie with very long resumes. And then there's like Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston, who were basically new.
And this was also the first appearance in the MCU of Clint.
Yes, this is the first appearance in the MCU of Clint Barton, as played by Jeremy Renner. So, there's a lot going on in this movie. Thor wants to go to where his hammer lands and get it back. He manages to get to where his hammer is, and he can't lift it. And that's heavy stuff for him, no pun intended. I mean, how do you... Basically, he's just lost his identity. Which, despite the MCU being about superheroes, identity isn't something we touch on a lot. The secret identities in most Marvel movies are almost tangential. Tony outs himself as Iron Man at the end of the first movie. Everybody knows that Tony is Iron Man. And Bruce Banner can't really conceal the fact that he's the Hulk. And Steve Rogers, as we'll see, pretty much immediately went on a publicity tour.
Yeah, that's the thing about, at least at this point in time of these Marvel heroes. Other Marvel heroes aren't, but the Marvel heroes, at least in this batch here, their public identity is well known. Where the DC Justice League, their identity isn't well known. It's secret identity.
Funnily enough, about the only character at this point who's really done the secret identity thing is Black Widow, who spends all of Iron Man 2 pretending to be somebody else. Or at least large amounts of Iron Man 2. she's undercover. She's not Natasha Romanoff through that entire movie, But that's not a secret identity the way we think of them when it comes to superheroes. So for Thor to lose what he thinks of as his identity, the power of Thor is the first real identity crisis of the MCU.
So, Nick, real fast, was there a Thor animated series that you watched?
I can't remember. Like, I don't know if Thor appeared in any of the 90s animated series. He was in the forefront of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1. Like, he's in your starting party alongside Captain America, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. And Asgard actually plays a huge part in that game's story because the entire third act is saving Asgard from, like, an invasion from Doctor Doom and Loki. And essentially, the MacGuffin of Marvel Ultimate Alliance is that Doctor Doom wants to steal Odin's powers, and the big lowest point moment of that game is Doctor Doom succeeds, and you have to spend the last 2 acts of the game formulating how you're going to take down a guy who literally has the powers of God.
Yeah.
Speaking of a god, Loki has his own plan here.
Loki, yeah. Now, the MCU Loki, really, the MCU Norse pantheon has some differences from what we know of the historical Norse pantheon. But because our knowledge of that is pretty much exclusively post-Christian, like the Norse didn't write their stories down even though they had a writing system. It's really frustrating. It's hard to say exactly what the similarities and differences are. And in some versions of the original myths, Loki is a frost giant by birth. And in this one, it turns out that Loki was, during the Asgardian invasion of, I can't remember the name of the realm of the frost giants. I'm sorry, Norse names don't stick in my brain too well.
Is it Niflheim, I think?
It might be Niflheim. Niflheim is definitely one of them, but I don't remember if it's the right one. And it turns out the whole 9 realms thing isn't true because they just kept making up realms, so there's at least 15 of them. But anyway, so during the Asgardian invasion, Odin found Loki left for dead as a sacrifice in the temple there and took him back to raise him as his own son. And made the mistake that many an adopted parent has, and was never open with his child that the child was adopted. I've read a lot about adoption. The way Odin handled this was all wrong. But it means that in the daddy issues off of the MCU, Loki's a contender. And then he kills his biological father at the end of the movie. So, yeah. As part of a plan wherein he will have killed both his father and Odin, and he will take the throne of Valhalla, having nicely disposed of Thor as well. Loki makes plans, it's what he does. They don't always work.
And his plan eventually made Thor worthy again.
Yes. Thor gains maturity through living for a while as a normal human. Loki says it's about Jane, but really it's about not having the power and seeing how normal people have to live. If you want my opinion. The planned invasion of Asgard doesn't work. The planned betrayal of the Frost Giants doesn't work. Loki ends up falling off the Bifrost as it gets destroyed to prevent godly stuff. It doesn't matter. So Loki is off being prepared for his place in the Avengers. Thor is desperately missing Jane. Odin is left to ponder his parenting mistakes. And Jane is trying to rebuild the Bifrost from her end. Thor is also shown in the end credits scene to be basically possessing Eric already.
You mean Loki?
Yes, Loki. Sorry. Because that's a thing that Loki can do.
And we, at the time, we get a glimpse of a future object or a past object.
Yeah.
A little block.
Little block. They don't know what it is. Well, they kind of know what it is, but we don't yet know what it is because we're not going to get revealed that till the next movie. Which is, in a sense, the first movie.
Take a little trip back in time.
How does it even work?
To
movie
the
starts
1940s.
Yeah, well, the movie actually starts in the modern times. They have found a giant lost thing under the ice in the Arctic. We then cut back to Norway, 1942, when I persist in thinking of him as Mitzi the Magnificent because I saw The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert at an impressionable age. But anyway, Schmidt, I believe is his name in this movie. Oh yeah, because Schmidt and Smith are the same thing, and he was Agent Smith in The Matrix. Anyway, Hugo Weaving goes to a castle in Norway where he retrieves a shiny thing.
Which is hidden in a tree of Norse mythology.
It is hidden in Yggdrasil, the World Tree. Then we cut to the United States, where heavily CGI'd Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. And let's be clear, this is one of the places where I absolutely approve of the use of CGI wholeheartedly. There's no way you could make Chris Evans 6 inches shorter. All the clever filming in the world only helps so much with that.
Yeah, this is a good one of the few instances of good CGI use instead of blatant CGI use.
B, even if you starved him, you couldn't make him look the way Steve is canonically supposed to look. And it's not healthy to do that to actors anyway. Fun fact, Tom Hanks has diabetes because he's done the weight loss, weight gain thing for roles too often. Mostly from Castaway. It's going to kill Christian Bale one of these years. It is a profoundly unhealthy thing for actors to do. And when Matt Damon said he could do it for The Martian, he was told that's why body doubles exist. And I approve of that choice. So anyway, Steve Rogers has had polio, probably. He's got asthma. He's had, I think I saw measles on his chart. I think I saw mumps on his chart. probably rubella. He's probably had all of those vaccine preventable illnesses. But it's World War II. And what he wants to do is enlist in the army and go and fight in World War II.
He's class F or D or whatever it was.
He is F. And that means that they're not going to take him. And a doctor's very firm. He's like, what I am doing here is saving your life. You will be killed if I let you go and fight in this war. And he doesn't care.
Yeah, because apparently he's tried this like 6-7 different times.
Yeah, we find out that he has claimed to be from all kinds of places. His best friend insults him because the most recent time he tried to claim he was from New Jersey. He is trying so hard to get into the army because he hates bullies. And that is how he sees the fascists. Take note. And he can't get in, and he can't get in. And finally, his best friend, his childhood buddy, James Buchanan, Bucky Barnes, played by Sebastian Stan, enlists and becomes Sergeant Bucky Barnes. And finally, he encounters Dr. Abraham Erskine, played by Stanley Tucci. I love Stanley Tucci. I love saying Stanley Tucci. And Dr. Erskine believes that Steve is the perfect fit for a little science project he's got cooking up. And he initially started working on it back in Germany with Johann Schmidt, who injected himself with the serum before it was ready, and things went horribly wrong. And that is why he is now, Red Skull instead of having a human face. Another member of the project is Captain Peggy Carter, played by Haley Atwell.
Oh, it's not mentioned here, but there's also one of the I don't know if the main character or not, but the drill sergeant or the sergeant.
He's not a sergeant. He's Captain Colonel, I think, played by Tommy Lee Jones. And he's not here because I ran out of room. There's a lot of characters in this movie, guys. I also didn't have room for any of the guys who go in, who he rescues and who go in with him to go after Red Skull. And there's a lot of characters in this movie, some more important than others. Because I very specifically wanted to get in Dr. Emil Zola, played by Toby Jones, who I wanted to mention him because he's a very clear stand-in for the concept of Operation Paperclip, which is a post-World War II real-world program wherein scientists who had been working for the Third Reich were brought to the United States to work in American programs. Probably the most famous Operation Paperclip member is Dr. Werner von Braun, who was a major part of the U.S. space program.
Yeah.
And appeared on several...
I'm going to say, we'll get to the consequences of this particular action in a future episode of Phase 2, but...
Yeah. Werner von Braun is actually available on Disney Plus because he made a couple of wonderful World of Disney episodes about the space program that are available on Disney Plus. It's very weird. That's not me making jokes. That's literally true.
Oh, I forgot something. Let's go back a few episodes real fast.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to mention this during Iron Man 2. Another hindsight thing that we know in the future. That congressman trying to get the rights to Tony's suit, Hydra.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole Hydra thing we'll really be talking about later.
Yeah. But like I said, but it was looking back in hindsight now, you see that even though you know
I
the
think
time.
it's a lot of retconning, if you want my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know that they decided then that he was Hydra, and I don't know if he has a comic equivalent. Because, like I said, actual comic continuity is way too snarled for me to keep track of everybody. But, it's explicit in this movie, and this is one of the things I think is really interesting. And this is one of my favorite MCU movies, honestly. Is they make it explicit that, you know, the Third Reich was looking for weird mythical junk. I don't know for sure that his reference to them digging in the sand was a Raiders of the Lost Ark reference, but it could be, and it's funny, so let's go with it. You know, Dr. Henry Jones Jr. was an early member of S.H.I.E.L.D. confirmed. But Erskine asks Steve if Steve wants to go kill Nazis. And Steve's reaction, well, his first question is if it's a test. And Erskine says, of course it is. Which is an interaction they have several times, and I think it's Erskine's way of saying, look, everything is a test. And you know that everything is a test, and you just keep going and you do what you're going to do. So anyway, that's not Steve's motivation. Steve's motivation is he doesn't like bullies. This will be Steve's motivation through the entirety of the MCU. Steve Rogers doesn't like bullies. And if he thinks you're a bully, he's not on your side. And if that means acting in ways that some people see as un-American, then that's what he's going to do. You know, I knew somebody who hated the MCU because they thought they should be looking up to Steve Rogers, who was such an obvious portrayal of American exceptionalism and blah, blah, blah. And he was everything that was wrong with America, and people should be more like Tony Stark. And given what we knew about this woman, it was clear to us that Tony Stark was actually representative of what she didn't like about the US, and Steve Rogers was the good bits, and we never understood this woman's argument. We decided she never really watched the movies. Because Steve's whole thing is, I don't like bullies. I am going to do whatever it takes to fight bullies. And initially what happens is he gets beat up a lot. Because he can't really do anything about bullies. But the reason he keeps enlisting is not to go kill Nazis or, you know, whatever insulting slang term you have for the Japanese. It's to go take down a bully. And that is why Steve Rogers is the best MCU character.
Yeah. So at this time, Dr. Abram puts Steve in basic training. At the time, the camp was run by Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes. Who has a character name? It doesn't matter. He's Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee Jones does not think he's right to get the serum. But what we see is that Steve is clever. He plans.
Yeah, one of the things I liked was that flag thing.
Yeah, whoever can get the flag gets to ride back in the Jeep with Agent Carter. In 17 years, no one's ever gotten that flag. And all of the other soldiers try to climb the flagpole, which you can't really do. Steve takes a look at it, notices how the flagpole is standing up, goes, unscrews a couple of things, the flagpole falls down, he gets the flag, he climbs into the Jeep without saying a word.
And then there's the false grenade thing.
Yeah. When Tommy Lee Jones throws a fake grenade into the ranks, everyone else runs away. Steve tries to dive on top of it in the hopes that he will save lives, which, side note, apparently doesn't actually work, but that's not the point.
Yeah, and also, I think that they mentioned it later in the for alternate universe thing that Peggy also tried to jump on it too.
Yeah. Like, look, he is brave. He puts others ahead of himself. He's intelligent. He is who you want because you don't have to worry about what if he decides to become a bully. And Erskine, who is killed immediately upon Steve successfully being made a super soldier, appears to be the only person who ever uses the goddamn stuff who understands what you want in your super soldiers. Because everyone else thinks about the soldier part and thinks about, we need the biggest, toughest, strongest guys. And Erskine thought, well, if you have the biggest, toughest, strongest guys, it had better be someone that you're not afraid of. Because if not, you've just created your own overclass.
You create a Red Skull. You create an abomination.
Exactly. Or I watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the new Captain America, played by, auditioned for the role, Wayne Russell. They wanted Chris Evans for the role immediately, and he turned them down 4 times.
Yeah, I guess the other exception that did work one was, we find out later in the next movie, Bucky Barnes, but he had to be brainwashed.
Yeah.
But that's that's next episode.
But so he is successfully treated with the super soldier serum, and he Erskine is shot. Members of Hydra try to steal the stuff, whatever.
Also, this is where we're also introduced to Tony's father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he meets Howard Stark, played this time by Dominic Cooper. I think we've had at least 3 guys play Howard Stark. So he meets Howard Stark, and they don't initially hit it off terribly, because, well,
Howard's a little like his future son at this point.
Yeah. There are certain personality traits that just seem to run in the Stark family. But they eventually become friends, And I love how it's almost in a not even thinking about it way that Howard keeps hitting on Agent Carter. Like, it's not that he thinks it's going to go anywhere. It's just, it's a thing that he does. It's very 1940s. But the thing is after they see what Steve is capable of, and because Erskine has been killed, and therefore they can't make another Steve, they decide he's too important for the war effort, selling bonds to risk in combat.
I forget. It's on top of my tongue. The military shows they put on. What was it called?
USO.
Yes, that's.
Yeah. And he sings, and this is by Alan Menken, who did a lot of work with Disney. I forget who the lyricist on it was. But they sing, and this is the other great song of the MCU, Star Spangled Man with a Plan. Which is, again, it's so perfect for its era. It's the most ridiculously, I am earning money, I am selling bonds, 1940s chipper song you've ever heard. And it's such an earworm.
And beat up Nazis with a punch.
Yes. And then they make the mistake of sending him to go entertain the troops.
And
the troops are rightfully wondering, if they have Steve and he's capable of all this stuff, why is he performing with dancing girls? And Steve doesn't disagree, gods no.
Mostly when he learns that his friend has been captured.
Yes, Bucky Barnes and the entire 109th Infantry, which Steve himself had hoped to join, has been captured and is presumed dead. And he asks for permission to go rescue them. Permission is denied, and he goes anyway. And after that successful mission, he and Bucky and a handful of other guys go with the hopes of taking out Red Skull in the not incorrect belief that taking out Red Skull is kind of important to, having a free world ever again.
Yeah, it was during this. I think at this time, very retcon, that we learned that during his capture, Bucky had been injected the serum.
Yeah, that's a retcon. We don't find that out. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something they did have planned, because I think Winter Soldier had become a thing in the comics by then, but I don't remember for sure.
Oh, and then he pulls off the human mask to show the skull too.
Yeah. There used to be a joke in comics that the three characters who were always going to remain dead were Jason Todd, Bucky Barnes, and Uncle Ben. Two of the three have now been resurrected.
As the Red Hood and Winter Soldier.
Yeah. In case you're wondering why deaths in comics don't have a lot of impact anymore.
Well, I don't know if it was before that, but the first one I knew about was the 94 Superman thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Death of Superman. Yeah, and, Gwen Stacy's come back from the dead, and Jean Grey has a revolving door to the afterlife. And, yeah. But
Gwen came back too? I thought Gwen came back in alternate universes, not in the main universe.
I don't remember, but she is back as a character, so whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Spider-Gwen is a thing.
Also, this we learned in this universe, at least, that Red Skull Smith doesn't really care about the Nazi ideology. He cares about his own ideology, the Hydra thing.
Yeah. He's perfectly willing to let Hitler do a lot of the grunt work and taking over the world, and then he'll just defeat Hitler and it'll be fine. So underneath Nazi ideology, there is Hydra. Cut off one head and more will take its place because Greek mythology, blah, blah, blah. And Emil Zola gets Operation Paperclipped.
And then Bucky falls off a train.
Bucky falls off a train. And grand epic battle between...
Oh, real fast. After that happens, another thing I liked was where he's trying to get drunk, but he can't.
Yeah, he can't get drunk because his body metabolizes too fast. And epic grand final battle between Steve and Red Skull, because he discovers that Red Skull is planning to send his bombs to, like, New York and places, and Steve's not here for that. He sends Red Skull away, I think is the way we're going to describe what happens.
Apparently, we learn later on that the Tesseract is called the Space Stone, and he somehow teleported.
Yeah, well, I was going with strictly what we know at this point.
Oh, okay.
Like, my summaries are very, this is how it happens in the moment, and what we'll learn about later will happen later.
Okay.
Because remember,
hindsight.
I saw all of these in the theater, when they were new, before the others had come out. And so I didn't know what was going to happen with Red Skull. All I knew was he was gone. And I think my partner knew about Infinity Stones because he's read a lot more comics than I have. But Infinity Stones were only just becoming known as the MacGuffins that they would later be. And what mattered was Steve crashed the plane into the Arctic and was presumed dead, and in point of fact was just frozen. And that's what they found in the ice way back at the beginning of the movie. And they try to make Steve wake up in a friendly, familiar environment and make a pretty serious mistake in what ball game is playing on the radio that you would think would be easy to check. And that's when he realizes that he is now in the 21st century. And everything he knew is gone.
Yeah, I like the that two lines there says, "I was there that game." This is live.
I saw that game live. I don't know what we're doing here.
Oh, and then the end is like, "I had a date," or I had something like that.
Yeah, because he was going to go dancing with Peggy at the Stork Club. And that's really when we get into our second identity moment of the MCU. It's not that Steve doesn't know who he is. Steve is very aware of who he is, but he doesn't know what the world is. One of the really nice touches we're going to have soon is Steve having the little notebook of things that people suggest he go check out. That's a phase 2 development. But it's a nice touch. Especially because it's one of the handful of things that they actually regionalized. So if you watch different versions of the movie, there are different things in his notebook.
Yeah. Now, Snake Feet, we talked about this when Snake Feet did other Marvel movies, but this Captain America was different entirely at the one from the 1990s movie. You there, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like this was totally, obviously different, but the acting was totally different too than the 90s Captain America movie.
Oh yeah, the 1991. That one was basically just a B movie. I mean, it was oddly endearing in its execution, but it's not good.
But at this point, all the characters have been introduced. It's time to bring them together.
You went robot for a second there for me.
I said all the characters have been introduced. It's time together.
Yeah.
This is what, in my opinion, can you turn the page, next page? There it goes.
And I will admit that I had not gotten around to watching this one yet. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to say about Captain America, real quick, before we move on, is I walked out of the theater with my partner, and I mentioned how much it reminded me of The Rocketeer, which is a damn fun movie if you haven't seen it. And it turns out the reason it reminds me so much of The Rocketeer is they have the same director, and that he was chosen in part because he had done so well on The Rocketeer, establishing it as a 1940s period piece. So.
Yeah, real fast. You mentioned that. That's one of my favorite lines of The Rocketeer we were talking at the people were talking, the mob was like, hey, I may be a low down criminal, but I'm an American low down criminal.
Exactly. Great line. Okay, anyway, the Avengers. And this is...
Now, I gotta say, real fast, this is what I think at the time, maybe they'll fix later, that Marvel did better than DC, where that DC tried to throw them all in at once. Well, here, they built each character up separately before they got them together.
The reason the Avengers worked is that we have gotten to know most of these characters as people already. I say most because I don't think we knew Hawkeye as a person, but I also don't think we cared.
Yeah, he appears so briefly in Thor that, like... And he's also the character that gets the least amount of focus in this movie.
Yeah.
So...
And honestly, he's my least favorite, both as a character and as a person in this collection. So, you know. Like, he's slut-shamed. Like, Jeremy Renner slut-shamed Scarlet Widow for theoretically sleeping with Bruce Banner. It's like, I'm sorry, if there's a slut in the Avengers, I think Tony has that title.
Speaking of him, did he ever recover from his
He's doing
injury?
a lot better. Yeah. You know, I don't know about full recovery, but then I don't know how much full recovery is possible with the extent of his injuries. But he's doing considerably better. He's, you know, walking and things. So, yeah. You know, like, just because there are a lot of things I don't like about Jeremy Renner doesn't mean I'm not happy that he's, you know, no longer severely injured from snowmobile crash.
But here we get also our second actor.
Yeah. And we're missing a few people on this list because, again, it's a very busy movie. Oh, I don't even know where to start. Mostly because I didn't get around to a rewatch of this movie. There is a big threat of some kind. They're not 100% clear on what it is. Loki tries to take over a bunch of people in Germany, one of whom is a concentration camp survivor. You can tell because you can see the tattoo on his arm, who's like, I am not going to kneel for you. It doesn't do us any good in the long run to kneel before bullies.
Okay. I'll repeat what you missed. I remember what you missed then. Shield's tested out the Tesseract. Loki comes out of the portal, uses the Mind Stone that he has for some reason now to start controlling people by touching their heart and start controlling people like Selleck and Hawkeye, and they take over the base. Nick Fury and Romanoff escapes, and they start calling. And they start ringing a lot of people up. Natasha goes to get Bruce from wherever he is now.
India, I believe.
Yeah, and then they wherever Tony is, they get him. They round them up. Then they and then that's when they go to him. They go to get Loki from Germany.
Yeah, and then Thor and Captain America and Iron Man have a big fight, and then they all team up together, and then Loki escapes because Loki's gonna Loki. And
he somehow triggers Hulk to come out.
Yes. And eventually, with one thing and another, there's an enormous battle in New York that takes up quite a lot of the movie and is explicitly mentioned to have killed many, many people, which is frankly a nice touch for a superhero movie, acknowledging that, yeah, people were gonna die. No matter how much you don't want them to, you can't avoid killing people in a full-scale battle like that in the middle of Manhattan. And they do everything they can to avoid it. But it is what it is.
And in the battle, one of my favorite lines where Bruce says, "That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry."
Yeah, and so this is our Mark Ruffalo Hulk having his first appearance. And I just think that line would have been so much more effective with thin, kind of wispy-looking Edward Norton. Mark Ruffalo is too... And I do not mean this as an insult because it applies to me as well. He's too extroverted in presentation to do a good Bruce Banner. He's meeting the world instead of trying to avoid it, to avoid setting off what's inside him. And this was our first introduction of the Ruffalo Hulk. And I saw this movie in the theater at least twice and was incredibly disappointed by Ruffalo's Hulk. And I know not everyone agrees with me, but people are allowed to be wrong.
Oh yeah. They're all fighting each other, and then got the reason they came together. Depending on if you consider it canon or not, the quote death of Phil Coulson.
Yeah, but I haven't finished Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I will someday. But I watched the first season. I had a fever, and the CIA report on torture had just come out. And in my mild delirium, I became convinced that the CIA had been infiltrated by Hydra and had some weird dreams, and haven't gotten back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, we'll get to the canonicity of S.H.I.E.L.D. or is or isn't when we get to Phase 2. That's when that
I
comes
feel
into
like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter and the Netflix shows need to be their own thing for canonicity.
Well, the Netflix shows have increasingly, well, mainly just Daredevil and Punisher, have increasingly been entering the main canon, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think up until the last 2 seasons, it could be canon. The last 2 is the ones where they get iffy, but like I said, we'll get to that in Phase 2 when they start appearing.
I'm most curious as to what they're eventually going to do about Iron Fist, the Netflix show everyone hated.
So far, it seems like they're just... So, little tangent. So, they brought back Daredevil for a new series, and Punisher's getting his own special, and Punisher's appearing in Spider-Man Brand New Day.
And well, so the Daredevil, too.
And also... Well, we don't know about... I don't know if we know about Daredevil yet.
Well, I mean, he appeared in No Way Home, so...
Well, he did appear in No Way Home, yes. And then Kingpin was in the Hawkeye show for Disney Plus,
which is really good.
Yeah, and then they've also confirmed Jessica Jones is coming back for the new season of Daredevil Born Again. So the only Netflix characters unaccounted for right now are Luke Cage and Iron Fist.
And again, nobody liked Iron Fist. Yeah. I don't know a single person who liked that show. I liked Luke Cage, even the bits that other people didn't, and I didn't like Iron Fist.
I mean, we can assume Luke Cage can still come back, because with Jessica Jones returning, the two of them are... Luke Cage is pretty central to Jessica Jones in a way, so...
Yeah. I suspect that what's happening right now is a great deal of discussion about what they're going to do about Iron Fist in general and Finn Jones in particular.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, point is, this is in a lot of ways a jumping off point for a lot more plot that we've got coming in Phase 2 and even further down the road. Things that I think are of particular note here are Tony's making the remarkably self-sacrificing decision to literally sacrifice himself and pilot an atomic nuclear bomb.
Oh yeah, because the people in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. above Nick Fury, the World Council, like, let's blow up New York.
Yeah. And what Tony did was take the bomb that was coming for New York and send it through the portal to go after the Chitauri. And get out before the portal's closed again. Which he barely succeeds in doing. And I think, this is another thank you for coming to my TED Talk moment, I think it is obvious canon that Tony comes away from that moment with PTSD. And I think that drives a lot of Phase 2, is Tony's PTSD. And now, obviously, I am not one to shame somebody for their mental health issues. That is not a thing that I do. But Tony's also not getting help for his PTSD. And I do shame rich people who don't get help for their mental health issues, because what is stopping you? There's also all of the left behind stuff that's going to be important on down the road. There is all of the destruction that is going to be important down the road. The lost lives will be important down the road. And a world having to deal with people this powerful is going to be important down the road.
and the leftover alien tech.
Yeah.
Like, I know the Netflix shows, their only overt connection to the wider MCU is that very occasionally they'll vaguely bring up, like, the Battle of New York in Avengers.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I don't know if you watched She-Hulk.
I saw the first couple of episodes, but it was a while ago.
So,
yeah. Well, I know Daredevil comes back in that, but yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She ends up having a fling with Daredevil.
Ah, well, they're both lawyers, so it makes sense.
They are both lawyers, and they have a case. I think they're actually opposing counsel on a case at some point, and yeah, it's fun. It's messy and complicated. It's a fun show. The CGI isn't great, but the show itself is enormous fun. So Mark Ruffalo is in She-Hulk as her cousin, because that's, as far as I know, canon everywhere.
Yes.
And so, by the transitive property of the Tommy Westphall extended universe, because Daredevil is in She-Hulk, the Netflix MCU shows are now canon.
Well, don't forget, Daredevil was also in Spider-Man No Way Home. Punisher is going to be in Brand New Day. Kingpin was in Hawkeye. So yeah, it's pretty abundantly. Yeah. And then Daredevil Born Again is airing now with an overt reference to Spider-Man and an appearance from Kamala Khan's dad briefly in Daredevil Born Again. Yeah, Daredevil Netflix is pretty overtly in the main MCU.
Yeah, because Ms. Marvel is very overtly canon.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like I said, the only one I think they're gonna possibly hide behind some furniture and pretend was never there at all is Iron Fist.
I could see them maybe partially wanting to hide Luke Cage, only because the guy they want to play Blade was the one of the villains in Luke Cage season 1. Same actor.
And CCH Pounder is in both Luke Cage and Iron Man 3, I think.
Very funny because CCH Pounder is one of those actors who's been known for a Marvel and DC role because she's frequently voiced Amanda Waller in DC animated stuff.
To be fair, CCH Pounder has done everything.
Yeah.
Fantastic actress. I love her.
Real fast. At the end of this movie, we get two things. One, I don't care. One of them doesn't count, in my opinion. The Swarmer scene. The other one is we get introduced to the guys. Oh my god! I blanked on his name. Thanos.
Yes.
He's not yet played by Josh Brolin here. Not yet.
No, but the shawarma scene is fantastic. I don't care. I laugh every time I see that movie.
Isn't it my... Oh, sorry, go on.
The complete, they're not playing characters. They're just sitting there eating and looking tired. And that's hugely funny to me.
Well, and then there's that... it's funny because it's my understanding Chris Evans already grew out facial hair for another movie or something, or just because the shoot was over. So during the shawarma scene, you can see he noticeably has his hand over his lower face to try and hide it.
I mean, it's better than what they did to Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Oh, also, apparently that restaurant is in fact in LA, and Vishanti has eaten there. She told me that yesterday when we were having a talk about something else. But No, it's the first time I saw it, I think I laughed until I couldn't breathe. You know, and it's one of the more populated MCU movies, if you know what I mean. Like, it's clear they are in a world full of people. And whatever else may be going on in the world, you know, what the Avengers do affects that, but also these people all still have lives. And they're going to continue having lives even when the Avengers aren't around doing things.
Well, especially as the MCU goes on, like, you just take in how this is a really large universe where a wide variety of different things could happen. Like, I remember watching one video that put it like this: this is in the same universe as a talking as this is in the same universe where a talking raccoon exists. You have Vincent D'Onofrio taking somebody's head off with a car door.
Yeah. I know that the Asgardians are aliens and the frost giants are aliens. I know. But regardless of, yes, technically those guys are aliens, this is the first movie that makes it clear that the MCU exists in a world with aliens. That there is a universe beyond what we know. Because Asgard is alien, but it's alien that has interacted with Earth. You know, like, Eric Selvig finds a literal children's book talking about concepts that we see in the movie. Whereas suddenly, New York is being attacked by the Discworld. Not like the actual Discworld, but the giant flying Chitauri turtles look like the Discworld to me. And that's how I'm always going to think of it. You know, and we discover that there are aliens even beyond that. And this is when the MCU becomes both big and small at the same time, if you know what I mean. Like, there's an enormous world out there. But, you know, in phase 2, Cap is still going to have to fight Hydra. And that's a big problem, but not on a cosmic scale.
Yeah, except for the near end, most of these, except for Loki, except for Thor and this movie, most of these threats here are local threats.
Yeah. You know, Natasha and Clint have been working for S.H.I.E.L.D. doing, you know, oh, I'm going to fight the Russian mob or whatever. Funnily enough, the biggest force we've ever seen Hulk fight is the U.S. Army. So, yeah, we're going to be fighting Thanos soon. And that's much, much bigger scale. But the Earth scale threats will still go on. And eventually we're going to get Spider-Man, who fights local crime a lot. And so it's the question of scale in Marvel is a complicated one. Because it goes from literally the quantum realm to literal universe-wide problems.
Yeah, like that's a story for a future episode.
Yes.
I bet that. I saw this episode.
I still haven't actually watched that.
I watched this today. I'll sum up. This was a 10-minute one. These two people found one of the leftover items from the battle, item 47. They somehow got it to work, started robbing banks with it. Which, you know, was like, it's a little for future nod to, I think, Homecoming later on, maybe. Where they got themselves bought from him, I don't know. But this point, Sid Colson is, quote, dead at this point, so they send Sitwell to neutralize these guys. He captures them, pulls out a knife, and says, "I'm supposed to neutralize. I'm not supposed to capture. I'm supposed to neutralize you." Turns out he didn't kill him. He recruits them to Shield. At the end, they become agents. Now, if they're really agents of Shield, or if they're secret Hydra, I don't know. You know, hindsight again. So maybe he recruited the villains for the Hydra. I don't know. They join Shield at the end after he captures them.
I'd like to hope that Shield has better what's the phrase I'm looking for? Background checks than that, but okay.
Well, since the guy recruited him as Hydra, I don't know.
Well, that's also true.
But yeah, that was basically it. Basically, it was a tale of what happens when an ordinary human finds alien tech and uses it to rob banks.
Yeah.
And with that, the end of Phase 1. So at the time, what do you guys think of Phase 1 when it first aired?
It's hard to explain how excited the whole thing made me, actually. Because I don't know when you first got into comic book characters, but I'm going to express again, I had been a comic book fan since the early 80s. And it's not that there weren't comic book movies in the intervening years. I saw Batman Forever in the theater twice. I saw Batman Returns in the theater. I made the conscious decision not to see Batman and Robin in the theater.
Yeah, I didn't see the first two ones. I think I might have seen the second movie. I think I might have seen Batman Returns. I think I was at the time I was too young to see original Batman in the theater. I might have been too young at the time.
I was too young to go by myself, and my mother didn't want to see it. Though, funnily enough, I didn't see Batman Returns with her either. She went and saw like Hunt for Red October in one theater, and my sisters and I went to Batman Returns in another theater in the same building.
I did remember going and seeing the Tommy Lee Jones Batman movie. I did see that one in the theaters.
That's the one I saw in the theater twice, because that was the summer after I graduated from high school, and Val Kilmer was, oh boy.
And I definitely saw the George Clooney one in the theaters. But
I chose not to.
But I also but really my introduction to the comic universe, I didn't really read comics as a growing up, but I did watch the 90s Spider-Man and the 90s X-Men cartoon.
Well, those are great cartoons. And I watched Batman the Animated Series, which is still the best version of Batman. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, don't even get me started. The late, great Kevin Conroy, gods, I miss him. And there were the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, even the third one. And, Blade and various things like that. But, so there's an interesting fact about Roger Ebert's ratings of comic book movies. And Roger died just as the MCU was really starting to take off. Because he died while I was pregnant with my son, who was born in 2013.
I think he died just a few months before Iron Man 3 came out.
Yeah. I could look it up exactly because I remember, having the news broken to me and considering and rejecting his name because I don't actually like the name Roger. So I wasn't going to call my kid that. I loved and respected him as a film critic, but I also interacted with him personally a few times, and he was the sweetest guy. But anyway, Roger was well known for giving superhero movies bad reviews. And when Spider-Man 2 came out and he gave it a glowing review, that may have been when I first found out why he did that. It's because most superhero movies up until that point were really bad. He was waiting for good comic book movies because he loved comic books and wanted to see good comic book movies, and most of them weren't.
Which I guess we get into the problem with any adaptation, really.
Well, sure. But, okay, Superman and the Tim Burton Batman and, a few of the other X-Men, which I saw the day it opened. But also, there's the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck. And God help us, Elektra.
Yeah. I mean, Daredevil is not great, but that said, the director's cut is way better.
Sure, but it still has a scene that's my biggest problem, which is when he and Elektra have this big fight in a schoolyard in front of a bunch of people, and no one considers it weird that he's holding his own in a martial arts battle despite being blind.
Yeah.
That scene bothers me.
Again, even from my understanding is that the theatrical cut's a mess, but the director's cut, which is the one that's in wide circulation now, it's fine. But, Elektra is a train wreck. Elektra is a train wreck.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Catwoman. Halle Berry apologizes for that movie. Apparently her agent made her take it.
Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider I've never actually seen.
It's mediocre.
That's what I've heard. That's why I haven't seen it. Supergirl is mediocre. A lot of the superhero movies that came out as I was growing up were fine, I guess. And so to be a big superhero fan, and I need you guys to understand, I have written novels about superhero characters that I created myself. I have my own superhero universe that I wrote.
I know you're alive, but were you of viewing age, remembering age for the Christopher Reeve movie, Superman movies?
No. I was theoretically of remembering age for the later few, but the first one came out in 78, I want to say. And I was 2.
Okay.
So I saw the Christopher Reeve ones, but I'm not of an age to really remember. And those went downhill awfully fast. And there was no real cultural impact for a lot of these. Certainly no lasting.
The early 2000s, they picked them serious again with the X-Men and the Batman movies.
Yeah. In the early 2000s, superhero movies started becoming a hot property for the first time. Like, I didn't see Batman Mask of the Phantasm in the theater because I missed it that week. You know? And so suddenly, not only were there good superhero movies in the theater, but people were talking about them. People who weren't just nerds were talking about them. Like, you could have a conversation with some rando at a fast food restaurant, and the odds were 90% or better that they had seen at least one MCU movie. And that was world changing for someone as into superheroes as I grew up being. So, yes, I love the movies as movies, and I still do, and I do think they hold up. But I also loved them for for letting me feel cool for a while, you know? Like, suddenly I was interested in the hip new thing, and that was totally new for me.
Yeah, I think the only major movie that flunked during this time was, I don't know, maybe it flunked, maybe it's hindsight they flunked, but it was the Fantastic Four movies.
Well, that's because they were bad. And the thing is I am all for bad superhero movies doing badly in the theater. Have I seen Madam Web? I have not. Am I going to see Morbius? Of course not. But maybe, Sony, if you release it in the theater a third time, maybe that's the time I'll actually go.
Yeah.
It could be Morbin time. You don't know.
Yeah. I think it's funny that Sony was trying to make its own universe, the Sony universe.
Oh, yeah, the Spider-Man universe with no Spider-Man in it. Choices were made.
I think the only one people liked overall was the trilogy.
Yeah, well, I can't watch the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, not just because everyone in the movie is acting rings around him, which is true, but because I saw the first one in the theater and realized midway through that Andrew Garfield looks like my firstborn's father and wanted to spend the rest of the movie hiding under a seat.
Yeah, I watched it later on. I didn't watch that. I didn't watch the Andrew Garfield movies till after I watched No Way Home, because at the time, this is before, but at the time I just got done with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and the third one burnt me out for a bit.
No, that's
and
fair.
Two, since they had, I knew of Gwen and what happened to Gwen, and I don't know what's Gwen died.
Yeah, no, that's fair too. I didn't see the second one, but the cast on the first one is amazing. And then there's Andrew Garfield, and he's fine. Which is kind of how I feel about Thor, honestly. I don't dislike Chris Hemsworth, but he's so outclassed in that movie. And it's only partially his fault because they cast Sir Anthony Hopkins as his father. But my gods, that poor man. A lot of my friends think of Chris Hemsworth as a character actor stuck in a leading man's body, and they are not wrong.
So, Nick, what was your overall opinion of Phase 1 that came out when it first came out?
Well, they knew what they were doing. That's the best way to sum it up. Because they were setting up for Avengers, they executed Avengers, and that was the starting point.
Either of you think it was still going on today, 20 was it 20 years later now?
So,
10 years later?
I was surprised for a while with each new movie that came out, because I was surprised that people continued to care. And also because, I mean, every other superhero movie series that there had been hit diminishing returns by no later than the third movie. I love Batman Forever, but come on, that's not the best of the series. And Superman 3 is not good. And X3 is not good. And Spider-Man 3 is not good.
Blade Trinity.
Yeah. So the fact that we hit a third MCU movie and the MCU was still good, and then the next movie was still good, and the next, that was like Thor's not my favorite, but I like it so much better than I like Spider-Man 3. It amazed me. And then as Phase 2 went on, there are movies in Phase 2 where I can understand not liking the movie, but even there's at least one set piece that is really fantastic.
And they somehow managed to keep the story arc going throughout all the movies.
Yeah. I have a friend who has a real problem with the second Thor movie for a lot of behind-the-scenes reasons, and I totally understand where she's coming from. But also, even she admits that fight where they keep, teleporting all over the place, and at one point somebody's got to take the underground back to get back to the fight, it's a really great scene.
I mean, I personally did not like Thor: The Dark World, but that'll be for next time.
Yeah. I mean, I like it better than the first one because I think they realized that Thor wasn't their best character. Thor has the least personality of anyone in Thor.
I will say, even though Avengers was the stepping point where they started making everything very interconnected, into Phase 2 and even into Phase 3, they were still pretty good about having the movies stand on their own.
Yeah, you don't have...
Or at least, staying contained with, their central characters.
Yeah, you don't have to have seen all of the other movies to get what's going on in any given movie.
And yeah, Phase 4 is where that utterly fell apart, but that is what...
Yeah, in the first three phases, I think the movies were standing alone. Like I said, there was an underlying thread. You could connect them together. It was subtle.
Yeah.
Not overall in your face.
But Phase 1, in my opinion, still holds up, still runs on all cylinders. I think the best of the phase is Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that is that I just really like a period piece. And I really like Peggy Carter as a character. And Tommy Lee Jones playing surly old man as if he's ever in his life played anything else. Even when he's playing totally manic in Batman Forever, he's surly old man totally manic. And he does not sanction Jim Carrey's buffoonery.
No.
But again, it's hard for me to explain a lot of my feelings about the MCU simply because unless you grew up in an era where people were literally getting beat up for interests in superhero characters. I'm not saying it happened all the time, but it happened. That meant you were a nerd, and people sometimes beat you up for that. It's hard to explain how exciting it was as a concept, especially coming out at the same time as, The Dark Knight, one of the greatest superhero movies ever made.
Yeah, like I said, that was, in my opinion at least, it might be different, the future might be different, but that was one of the last great DC movies that came out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 2008 was such an amazing year for movies. And it was so transformative for my pop culture identity in a lot of ways. And yes, part of that is me being a nerd. But also, these were really good movies, and they were really good movies doing something fairly innovative. Yeah, okay, Iron Man is yet another origin story, but is Tony at any point in that movie struggling with keeping his identity secret from the people he loves? Closest he comes is trying to get his best friend to not shoot him out of the sky. And then, his secondary father figure tries to kill him, which is a whole other thing. And, everyone knows who the Hulk is because that kind of thing is hard to disguise. And everyone knows who Thor is because he's a literal god. And everyone knows who Captain America is because there are comic books and trading cards.
So the only two people that were hidden from the public at the time were Black Widow and Hawkeye.
Yeah. And they were just secret agents. Like, they were characters from a different genre transplanted into a superhero movie. Though James Bond can be argued to be a superhero, depending on your definitions, in this TED Talk, I will. But here's the thing. I've never really cared about James Bond. So, and I don't really care about most of the other big action movies. So people will be talking about these big action movies, and I have nothing to contribute to the conversation. Most blockbusters in my lifetime, I either haven't gotten a chance to see or didn't care that much about. In a few cases, actively disliked. And I was having a conversation in a message board full of nerds in the early days of the MCU, and somebody was complaining about having Iron Man and Thor in the same universe because they're science and magic, and who thought that was a good idea, and they got very annoyed when my answer was Stan Lee.
Oh, message boards.
Yeah. Because I'm old. And I mean, that may be disingenuous of me in as much as I don't think Stan Lee really did as much creating as history says he did. But the point is, it's a long-standing Marvel thing, don't get bad at the MCU. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel for characters because they only have so many characters that they didn't sell the rights to.
So, what do you think for phase 2? What do you think about 1 month from now, the first Saturday of December?
Well, that's my birthday week, so...
Okay, then. That's...
yeah, literally, that's my birthday.
Second Saturday. Well, the next set... Well, the last Saturday of November is Thanksgiving, so that's obviously out. So I like to have this time to watch the phase 2 stuff.
I mean, I don't have Thanksgiving plans, but I'm sure other people do. No, any other time is fine. Just I'm not doing this on my birthday.
Okay. So when's good for you, Snick? Then.
I'm probably fine on like the second Saturday, unless they schedule me for work. But I'm not gonna know until like.
Let's see. All right, so let's look at my calendar real fast. So let's December 13th.
Works for me.
Okay.
That'll give us time to watch Phase 2 and get notes if we need them.
All right.
All right. Anything either you want to advertise?
Not really.
I'm starting up the month of Chris over at Media Magpies this month for my Saturday and Sunday articles. Today is Christine Jorgensen, but relevant to this conversation, tomorrow will be Chris Evans, and next Saturday will be Christopher Reeve.
Nice.
And I've also got Chris Pine later in the month. So,
maybe you can do a future episode of this future Magpie article of this episode that we just did.
could do.
Like I said, nothing planned, but and I currently have nothing planned on my channel right now until our Phase 2 thing, but still, things might change. Anyways, check out. Right. Hope you all enjoyed. I hope you enjoy your reading today.
Oh yes.
Week late. But until then, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. We will see you next time. Bye.
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 Hey, thanks for watching my podcast or Let's Play. If you want to help support my channel, you can make a monthly or yearly pledge on Patreon, or just a one-time donation on Vimeo, PayPal, or Cash App. For those looking for something to wear, we have some shirts, hats, and other stylish things in our merch store. If you enjoy gaming, you can always follow and sub to me on Twitch. For those who don't want to give money, I have an Amazon and Steam wish list who can help the channel out. And of course, just liking, leaving a comment, and sharing this video helps more than you can imagine. And always remember to never stop learning and enjoy the randomness.